Hey, Hal here. Today we're talking about the African Football Collective World Cup 2026 experience. So, FIFA World Cup 2026, football strategy, leadership, lessons learned. I'm returning to the FIFA World Cup African Collective experience at the World Cup. The focus, therefore, is on Africa. During this FIFA World Cup 2026 tournament, the continent demonstrated that it belongs amongst the world's elite, but it also exposed what still separates African football from consistently reaching the semifinals and even the finals. Africa has arrived. Now, Africa must learn how to finish. The 2026 FIFA World Cup tournament proved that African football can compete with anyone. The next challenge is learning how to win the moments that define champions. Africa's best collective World Cup ever. This was Africa's best collective World Cup ever. The statistics alone tell a remarkable story. For the first time in history, 10 African nations participated in a World Cup, and 9 of them reached the knockout stages, an extraordinary achievement that far surpasses previous African World Cup participation. The continent also recorded more World Cup victories than ever before. Only Tunisia failed to advance, while Morocco, Egypt, DR Congo, Ghana, Senegal, Algeria, South Africa, and Côte d'Ivoire and Cape Verde all gave the world compelling performances. This alone demonstrates that African football is no longer merely just producing talented individuals, it is now producing competitive national teams. The point number 2 in my observation, the question is, but why did more teams reach the quarterfinals? This is where the tournament becomes fascinating. Looking at several African teams that were eliminated during the knockout stages, a pattern appears. Many African teams were not outplayed. They were outmanaged in the closing stages of the game. Examples include DR Congo. They led England most of the game until Harry Kane scored twice late to lead England to a 2-1 victory. Egypt led Argentina 2-0 until late in the game before conceding 3 unanswered goals from Argentina. Senegal led Belgium 2-0 late before conceding twice and eventually losing in extra time. Côte d'Ivoire lost to Norway after another late winner despite competing evenly throughout the match. This repeated pattern of losing at the end of the game suggests that the issue was not talent alone. Point number 3, experience matters. The knockout rounds at the World Cup are different than the group stages. European and South American teams powers have played hundreds, if not thousands, of high-pressure knockout matches over the decades. They understand how to slow a game, when and how to press, when and how to manage momentum, how to exploit tired opponents, and perhaps most importantly, they understand how to believe they can still win in the final minutes of the game. Many African teams are only now accumulating this type of experiences. That isn't a criticism, it's part of becoming an elite football nation. Point number 4, tactical depth. Another difference is tactical flexibility. The best teams rarely have only one plan for the game. Spain was able to change the rhythm of the game. Argentina was able to adapt repeatedly. England was able to alter their shape. Even Norway demonstrated tactical flexibility. Several African teams executed their Plan A game brilliantly. The question was, what happens when Plan A stops working after 70 minutes into the game? You see, championship football is often decided not only by Plan A, but by Plan B and even Plan C. Point number 5, squad depth. Another important factor is depth. Although many African stars play for European biggest clubs football, several national teams still experience a noticeable drop in quality once substitutions begin. Compare this with Spain. Spain was able to introduce fresh internationals without significantly changing the team's overall level of play. Brazil, even during its rebuilding process under Carlo Ancelotti, could still bring players such as Neymar or Rafinha from the bench and maintain the level of the play. Elite teams don't merely have starting 11s, they have 23 to 26 players capable of changing matches. Point number 6, domestic competition. Here is another important observation. Many African stars develop in Europe. However, national teams depend on an entire squad. If several players come from domestic leagues where weekly competition intensity is lower than the competition in European top leagues, that gap can appear during the closing stages of a World Cup match. This isn't about individual ability, it's about the accumulated experience of playing high pressure matches together every week. Point number 7, game management. Perhaps the biggest lesson from the 2026 tournament is game management. Teams need to understand when to keep possession, when to slow the tempo, when to draw fouls, when to rotate the ball, when to defend emotionally, when to conserve energy, and when to recognize how to recognize dangerous moments in a game. This is what Carlo Ancelotti repeatedly calls winning football. It's rarely spectacular, but it's intelligent football. Point number 8, coaching. Should coaching receive criticism? Partially. Africa has excellent coaches. Sébastien Desabre with DR Congo, Walid Regragui work with Morocco in recent years, and several others have demonstrated high tactical competency. The greater challenge is helping coaches gain repeated experience against the world's very best under World Cup knockout pressure. No amount of classroom instruction replaces repeatedly facing teams such as England, Spain, France, Argentina, Brazil, or even Norway in elimination matches. Point number 9, the biggest positive from this tournament. Perhaps the greatest change from previous generations is psychological. African teams no longer enter the World Cup just hoping to compete. They now enter believing they can win. That mentality matters. Morocco's semi-final run in 2022 changed Africa's imagination. The 2026 tournament reinforced it. The next milestone is no longer just reaching the knockout rounds. It's regularly reaching the quarterfinals and the semi-finals and ultimately winning a World Cup. Leadership lessons from the 2026 tournament. This tournament reminds me of something Carlo Ancelotti has emphasized throughout his career. Championships are not usually won by the most talented teams. They are won by the teams that make the fewest mistakes when fatigue, pressure, and emotion reach their highest point. Africa has demonstrated it possesses the talent. The next challenge is building football programs in their countries that consistently produce tactical maturity, squad depth, institutional stability, and the experience required to finish matches against the world's elites. The question is no longer whether an African nation can win the FIFA World Cup. The question is when. And after what we witnessed in 2026, that day appears closer than ever before. Let's go.